If you can skate, doesn't have to be well, and maybe block a few shots, you should consider submitting your application to be the Flames' sixth defenseman.
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. As always, I'm your host, Jess Belmosto, and thank you so much for joining me today. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Today's episode, we're talking about some changes that are happening with Nikita Okhotiuk reportedly signing in the KHL. He is an RFA after this season, or come July 1st, I suppose. And the Flames can retain his rights, and we're going to get all into that. And of course, we're going to talk about some familiar faces the Flames may or may not reunite with on July 1st. And of course, what are you prioritizing here? Because there's a lot that you have to worry about and focus on during all of this. And there are a lot of moving parts. But make sure you subscribe to Locked On Flames wherever you're getting your podcasts, as well as YouTube. We are here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, your team every day. And if you are watching on YouTube, you may see my glasses break. They're being held together by tape, and good luck. But let's start. A few days ago, Nikita Okhotiuk was signed in the KHL. There were reports of this, and basically that just means he can go to the KHL. The thing here is that he was just going to be a third pairing defenseman for the Flames. Okay, let's not act like this is a significant loss, right? This is kind of, I don't want to say a dime a dozen because that kind of minimizes who he is as a person, but the skill set he has is easily replaceable. So for those of you who don't know, Okhotiuk was acquired at the deadline from the San Jose Sharks in return for a 5th round pick this year. The Flames obviously went after him because he's a young defenseman with team control. I don't think that it necessarily means like the state of the Flames is bad. I think some players just want to be closer to home, as we have seen in this organization and are very familiar with. Some players just want to be closer to home, and sometimes home is Russia or Europe, and that's where they choose to be, and that's so be it. That is their right. However, the Flames can retain his NHL rights if they extend a qualifying offer by that deadline, which I believe is going to be June 30th. And that's that. You know, it doesn't have to be anything any more complicated than that, right? This is great for the players who are looking to break the NHL lineup. You know, you have Soloyov, who played a bit in the NHL this year, didn't really get consistent time. Definitely still needs some work, but like, I don't know. I don't know what you expect from, you know, the Flames defensive prospects, because, you know, there has been a logjam in the defensive groups in the last few years. You know, you were not taking anyone out of the lineup for, you know, Hanifin and Tanev. Shillington, you obviously could, you know, you could count for him not being out. So you had a spot for him there. You weren't taking out Uyghur or Anderson. So you had guys like Jordan Osterley, Joel Hanley, Nikita Zadorov on that third line, or third pairing rather. So, you know, it's minimal minutes. It's nothing that is too overly complicated for these guys. I think that it's something that's doable for guys like Soloyov and Poirier. I think that it's not anything out of the realm of possibilities. The Flames need to start graduating some of these guys to the NHL, especially if they want to be competitive in a few years. You can't just throw people into the NHL and expect them to be fully ready and competitive. There is oftentimes a learning curve. If you think about it, the percentage of players that are just immaculate from the start of their professional career to where they are at like their ceiling it doesn't feel very high. I think of players like Brad Marchand, who really was a fourth line grinder for a little bit, and he worked hard. You might not like him, but he worked hard to get to that top line spot, right? And I think that a strong work ethic and good coaches and a good culture and the drive to want to play professionally consistently in the NHL over the AHL is a great drive. I think that that's a great motivator. And I hope that this next generation of Flames prospects have that. I think that the Wranglers are a good group. Obviously, they only won one playoff round, but they put up a fight against Coachella for the most part. It's just, it's hard to do when you're going up against the best team. So there's definitely hunger. There's drive. They want to be better. And that's good, because you always want your players to want to be better, because then they're giving you that 110%. But coming up next, we are going to talk about some former Flames that the Flames could potentially reunite with, or just absolutely cross off of their list. And we will be right back after this. I love summer, like spring and summer, because it is the time to get in on sports. You can go to NBA playoff games, you can go to NHL playoff games if you're lucky, and of course you have baseball. I absolutely love going to Fenway Park and enjoying a nice soft serve ice cream in a cone or the little helmets. And do you know who gets me there? Game Time. Game Time makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down closer to the game. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, view from your seats, and lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. I am going to Red Sox Yankees here in a couple weeks, and I couldn't be more excited, because Game Time was actually my first and only stop when it came to purchasing tickets. You can find last-minute deals, like flash deals where you are saving even more with the in-app exclusive deals on select seats ahead of the game or the event. And you can save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off of your first purchase. Again, terms apply. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off of your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you're getting your podcasts, as well as YouTube. We are here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week. Your Flames every day. This is a much better upcoming UFA class, I would say, than the last few years. I feel like the last few years have either been really hit or miss, and I think a lot of that has to do with cap space and with the eligible players. If you're a team that is like the Anaheim Ducks or Arizona Coyotes and can spend, or oh god, they're not even the Arizona Coyotes anymore. NHL Utah, you can go out and spend, but that doesn't mean players are going to want to come to you, I thought that it would be interesting to go through a list of some of the upcoming UFAs that have played with the Flames, whether it be for a little bit or for a majority of their career, and just see if it would be a good fit. Up first is Troy Stecher. Troy Stecher hasn't been playing for the Oilers through the playoffs, and that is because he needs ankle surgery, which I found this out like 20 minutes before I started recording. So thank you to the Edmonton beat writer who brought that to my attention so I didn't sound like a complete dummy when this goes live. But he was a trade deadline ad a few years ago, and obviously left in free agency. He wanted to come back, but I guess the feeling wasn't mutual. But I think that he's a good depth player. I don't hate him. I think he's great at great on the penalty kill. Him and Oliver Shillington would probably play well together. You need somebody with the mentality of, I'm grinding to show you my best. I am giving you everything I have every single game. Obviously you want players where, it comes effortless, but sometimes, the guys that actually have to try, I feel like sometimes you get a little bit more out of some occasionally. And then TJ Brodie, who is on the exact opposite end of this spectrum. And TJ Brodie spent 10 years with the Flames, and the last 4 years with Toronto. He has struggled. Like, let's not play dumb. If you have watched him at all this past season for Toronto, you knew that something was off. You could absolutely tell he was not there offensively. I don't know where he was defensively, but I also know that there have been a lot of extenuating circumstances surrounding him and his family that have kind of taken priority over hockey, and you can't blame a human being for that. Life comes first. And this kind of reminds me of a situation where you kind of just bring him home and you let him have his last run and finish where he started. I don't think that this is a player that Toronto is going to want to keep. I mean, it's Brad Treliving, so maybe I'm entirely wrong because he drafted this kid. He's not a kid. He is a grown man. But, he really got to watch TJ Brodie come up through the Flame system and whatnot. So, is this something that does he even want to return to Toronto? The media was absolutely horrendous on him. And I don't think that that's fair. I really don't think that's fair, especially when his wife went public with her MS diagnosis, and you're talking about how he hasn't scored a goal in 68 games. That's okay. And I know it's his job to, go out there and play hockey, but not everyone can do that night after night. And I don't know, especially as an older player, obviously I expect someone like Morgan Rielly on the Leafs to go out there and do the same thing every night and shut down and do that. But the responsibilities have shifted for a guy like TJ Brodie, and I think he would be fine to bring in as a seventh defenseman and that nice veteran presence. I think, him and Mangiapane have a great friendship and a special relationship, and maybe he goes back to, his home. He comes home to Calgary and probably does not, I don't think he has much left in the tank. And I'm sure that there would be a need for him because people get dinged up along the way. And you can look at any team and say, well, this guy, he's just there to eat $1 million. That you can look at any team. And Yeah, that's true, but you also need to fill out a roster. Your prospects are only going to be able to come up and do so much. If you just want a guy that can go out there and do a few things for a few minutes a night, okay. TJ Brodie, let me hand you a piece of paper with a pen. The next guy on my list, so I don't entirely hate the idea of TJ Brodie coming back to the Flames. I think that it wouldn't be a good idea, but I also understand why if they did it. Strong veteran presence, someone that knows the organization well, and can be that guiding light. My next guy, though, he's not going to want to touch Calgary with a 10-foot pole. He is still dissing them in the media, and that would be our good friend Nikita Zadorov. Nikita Zadorov wanted to stay in Calgary, and then one day, post-game, or him and his agent get on Twitter, or his agent gets on Twitter and is basically like, Nikita Zadorov has requested a trade. And then Zadorov is asked about it in post-game media conference, and he ended up apologizing to the guys on his team, and just uncomfortable. Just a weird situation. He doesn't want to be here. The Flames are not going to throw $6 million at Nikita Zadorov. Maybe in Monopoly money, but not in Canadian currency. That's fairly obvious. Zadorov has really taken strides, like leaps, since he came from Chicago. And I think that he is a product of Daryl Sutter by Eric Goodbranson. Eric Goodbranson got paid after that really good season. Nikita Zadorov probably going to get paid. Good luck. Eric Gustafson. He is currently on the Rangers, and no. Is my short answer? No. Derek Forbort, who was like briefly acquired during a trade deadline, I think that's fine. Like, again, he's a body. He spent a lot of the season injured or out of the lineup, and if you need someone to go out there, maybe kill some penalties. He's your guy. You're gonna find him out of position. It's gonna be very similar to Noah Hanifin in terms of being in your own little planet sometimes, but I also think that a new scenery might help him. Obviously, he's an older player, and he does not have too much. I would say too much time left in the league, but players surprise us every day. So I think if you're gonna sign someone, you kind of need someone that's still like really effective, and Forbort kind of in the middle there. But I'm very curious if, like, there are absolutely names that on Cap Friendly that I did not name here, but I do wonder how they're prioritizing their defensemen that they're bringing in. Do they think that there's, if say they draft a defenseman in the top 10, is he going to be ready to go? Hunter Brustowicz is not ready to play in the NHL by any means, so let's not rush that. Like I mentioned before, you have Jeremie Poirier and you have Ilya Soloyov. Those two guys are probably going to be the ones that make the jump. Dennis Gilbert is a UFA, so like, what are you doing there? Oliver Shillington, you still have to re-sign too. So it's like, what is the game plan here? And coming up next, we are going to talk about what we're going to ponder what could be some priorities for our Calgary Flames. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. Make sure you're following me on Twitter at Jess Belmosto. This is something that, like, you could sit and dissect for days, because you can make an argument why the Flames should prioritize scoring, why they should prioritize finding a right wing for the second line, why they should focus on solely on finding centers, why they should do this, why they should do that, why they should just focus on defensemen. You can sit there and make an argument, and you can make sense in both categories, because yes, the Flames obviously need to score, but they also need to stop goals. I think the biggest challenge for the Flames post deadline was the defense. Like, that wasn't even, it's not even a question, because that team couldn't stop a beach ball. I don't think they could stop a train. They would not be able to stop anything. And it's concerning, because you go from having one of the top penalty kills in the league, and that's all fine and dandy, obviously, but if you're not doing anything with it in terms of postseason runs, you had to trade Tanev, you had to trade Hanifin. You aren't gonna just throw they really did just throw random men on the blue line. Jordan Osterley is a UFA as well. He is someone that they could maybe bring back. I don't know. But I guess where is the Flames' focus right now? Because if it were me, I think you have to focus on the back end, because that is where you are the most depleted. There aren't many players where I'm like, this guy can be a consistent, 82 game player in the NHL season next year for the Wranglers. I don't see that. And that's fine. They have to play at some point, but when are you going to graduate them, and who you're going to graduate them with and promote them to is another situation too, because you don't want to set a guy up for failure. And if you throw Soloyov on the third pairing with Joel Hanley or something, what do you expect to happen? Do you and the Flames are actually pretty good about, when Shillington came back, he got his minutes with Weegar, and he got his time with Anderson a little bit, and he was able to get his footing underneath him, which I think is a huge, help. But I don't know. I don't know if the Flames necessarily want to just do that for every guy that comes through the system. And I feel like if they're graduating players to the NHL, it's going to be for the purpose of them being ready. And I don't think that that's the case. They still need to bake a little bit, but at the NHL level, if you're picking up what I'm putting down. I know that you can, you can always add vets up and down your lineup. Does not matter where. You could be looking at forward, or you could be looking at goaltender. There are always going to be those players available. But what you can't do is you can't throw money around. You can't just give, Matt Dumba a $5 million contract for the next 2 years because, you think he's going to fix everything. You can't do that. You can't throw $4 or $5 million at Matt Grzelcyk for the next 5 years. You cannot do that. You have to be methodical with your signings, and you can't be short-sighted. And I think that might upset some people when it comes down to it, because you just need some placeholders for a little bit. That's really what you need. You just need some placeholders, some little stoppers. And until you are at the point where you can graduate players full time. Because who knows? There could be a situation where, Soloyov comes into the lineup next year and he pops off defensively the same way like Zari and Pospisil did. There's a million and one ways for things to go down. And I think that's what's fun about hockey, is that it's not always super predictable, and it's the unexpected can happen. Their biggest thing is going to be not writing blank checks to players that don't require it. I think that they have to figure out if they want what kind of team they want playing in front of Dustin Wolf, because it is time for Dustin Wolf to be playing at the NHL level. And we talked about it. Was it earlier this week? Yeah, I guess it was. Yeah, it was Monday. About how the Dustin Wolf is ready to play at the NHL level, but the defense that was in front of him post trade deadline was just unacceptable for him to learn with, because they were not helping him out in any situation. And, are you going to be able to help him? I guess, how much. That's where I think adding veterans like, a Derek Forbort might help, or bringing back TJ Brodie, because they can kind of hold it together a little bit. I mean, obviously, it's not going to be like Chris Tanev. I'm so sorry. Chris Tanev is probably not coming back to Calgary. I see him re-signing in Dallas, or probably going back to Vancouver. So, actually, Vancouver has no money. So, we're going to have to see what happens there. But at the end of the day, the priority, main focus should be not throwing money around like confetti, because that's not going to do anyone good. You need to look at term too. That's going to be a big indicator of where Craig Conroy thinks this team is. But that will do it for me on today's episode of Locked On Flames. I hope you all had a great time listening to the show, and thank you so much for making Locked On Flames part of your day. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. We are here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, your team every day. And I hope that your week continues to be great. If you're in America, it's a short work week, and if you're in Canada, it's a regular work week, I'm pretty sure. But stay safe, stay warm, stay cool if you're in one of the warmer climates. Stay hydrated, stay kind. Most importantly, be nice to one another.